Hey everyone, it's Karley Hall, and I'm so glad that you're here for this tutorial. This one has been a highly requested tutorial. So today I'm going to teach you how to fill in your fonts or images when you're drawing with your Cricut. So typically what your Cricut will do, if you have a thick or a bold font, it will draw just the outline portion of your lettering, and then you'll have to manually go in and color in the image. Well, today I will show you how to use your Cricut machine to do all that hard work for you. So before we get started, I wanted to talk about using Sharpies with your Cricut machine. If you haven't watched the tutorial on these adapters, I will put a link in the video description so you can check that out. I'll go over the basics today, but if you want a full tutorial on how to use different pens with your Cricut machine, definitely check out that tutorial. Now, I got a lot of feedback on why the heck would you have your Cricut draw when you can just use a printer. So I wanted to show you that you can draw on different substrates like metal or envelopes or even plexiglass. So you're not limited to just drawing on paper or cardstock. So while you're watching this tutorial, think about different materials you can draw on like wood or chalkboard or things that you might not be able to print on. So hopefully that answers your question as to why you would want to do this. I will say that drawing on an envelope took a really long time, so I'm not sure I would recommend that. My printer doesn't have white ink, so I thought that would be a fun idea, but I wasn't thrilled with the outcome here, so we won't be going over that today. But I did want to say that I will keep on exploring for and looking for white pens that will work better on darker materials. So you can see the pen I used here. I'll link it in the video description just in case you want to try it out, but it does fit with that Sharpie adapter. It just wasn't as vibrant as I was going for, so I actually ended the job early because it was taking way too long, and for something that's going to go in the trash, I wasn't sure it's worth it. So we'll be focusing on drawing on metal today, but I also wanted to show you this project that I did a test on. This is a float frame from Michaels. So in the frame, it comes with two pieces of plexiglass that are put together, so you can actually do two different projects. And I drew on the underside, so I mirrored my image and used a Sharpie to draw. And you can see that I did a crosshatch pattern around the wreath, and then I did an angle stripe pattern through the word. And this was just using a Sharpie. I also thought it would look really good with a gold marker. So when you're experimenting and looking for pens that will work with this method, I recommend just grabbing a piece of the material that you're using, marking on the back of it, and just coloring to see if it'll wipe off. My Sharpies did wipe off immediately, but then they would dry and they were permanent. So test it out on the material before you stick it in your Cricut machine, but it's super fun. All right, so I have this project here. You can see that I tested the different line tightness. So I have all the different measurements here, which we will go over in this tutorial. And today we'll be drawing on the back side of this to make a cute little sign. I'm not sure what I'm going to put on it yet, but as the tutorial goes on, we'll figure that out. So again, you're not limited to just Sharpies. You can try any pens, especially with the adapters. Try out different pens and see what you can draw on. You'll have to let me know in the comments what you end up figuring out. All right, let's get into designing. In today's tutorial, I will be showing you a technique in Silhouette Studio Business Edition. If you're new around here, I used to work at both Silhouette and Cricut in their corporate headquarters, so I'm very familiar with both of their programs, and we are going to be using Silhouette Studio Business Edition with our Cricut machine. So before you think I'm just trying to sell you something, you can absolutely try Silhouette Studio for free before investing. So you don't need to go and buy the software right away. You can download the free version. I will put a link in the video description. You can see if you like it. It is currently $59.99 and it's a one-time payment. There's no recurring payments. It was totally worth it for the time that I saved designing and for the things that I could do with it. So I can show you here. This is the test file I created. And in Silhouette Studio, the free version, you can do this, but to actually have it work with your Cricut, you need to be able to export to an SVG, which I will walk through. You do need Business Edition for that. So I always get a lot of comments about mine doesn't have that save to SVG feature, and it is because you need to upgrade. So I will put a link in the video description. Right now, today, as of February 26th, it is $59.99 using that link in my video description. So check that out, but you'll have to let me know if you have questions before. If you are on the fence about purchasing it, just drop those questions in the comments. Okay, so here's my test file. You can see that everything has little lines, and that's what your Cricut pen will follow. So if we look at this file, and then we jump back over to my camera, you can see that the Cricut uses those lines as the draw lines. So it would work with other things as well. So if you were using this file to engrave or to foil, it would also work. So you're not limited to just drawing. This is just a cool technique to fill in your images. So again, here's the test file, and here is what it looks like in Silhouette Studio. So I'm going to show you how to achieve this. We'll delete this off of our workspace. I'll zoom out a little bit. And we're working on a 5x7 piece of metal. This piece of metal is sold by Cricut, and I will link it for you. You can actually use it with infusible ink too, which is cool. So there's lots of options, and it works great with engraving. So if you wanted to use this technique to engrave, you could do that as well. So I'm going to draw a 5x7 rectangle to represent the area that we're working in. I just clicked on the left, that little drawing tool, and dropped in a rectangle. Very similar to Cricut. Next, we're going to figure out what we want this image to say. So I have a ton of cute little signs around my house that have quotes. We're in the middle of a pandemic right now, so maybe a cute little wash your hands sentiment, or really anything that you want to say. If you're anything like me and you're not a good designer, you also can check out the Silhouette store. It will open a window, an internet browser for you. And you can check out their designs as well. So you can use all of these designs. You will just have to figure out what you want to say. Okay, look at this one. This one's really cute. There's all these different quotes. So if we wanted to go to designs and go to phrases, let's do phrases to get some ideas. In Silhouette's design store, you can just scroll through and you can find all these really cute designs. Right now, you can see that some of them are on sale. They have lots of promotions all the time, but you can pick anything that you want. And it's a one-time payment, but you can use it over and over. So depending on what you're looking for, I think I'm going to do something with Home Sweet Home. So I like this one. We're going to use this one. It's on sale right now for 69 cents. But if you are using a Cricut, you will need the SVG file. So go ahead and click SVG. If you don't choose SVG, it will export kind of weird and you won't be able to use it with your Cricut. It kind of does this dashed line thing. I have a full tutorial on how to use these designs with your Cricut machine. So I'll go kind of quickly through here, but we'll check out. And I have a subscription, so I actually have credits available. So you can check out their subscriptions. It ends up being less than $1 per image if you have a subscription. So we'll check out, type in my password, and download our image. So there's a big direct download button. It will also go to your library, but we'll just open up the zip file, double click on the file, and then you can see that I have that SVG file. I'm going to drag it onto the desktop just so you can see what's happening. And then we're going to head back over to Silhouette Studio. So from my Finder on my desktop, I will grab the new SVG that I just got and drop it right in. Oops, don't want to do that. All right, so I have my image. Now I'm going to select all the different pieces. I'm just holding down the Shift key and selecting all of the pieces. And I'm going to group those together so that they stay together when I'm resizing them. We're going to resize it to fit onto our 5x7 image. And if you were to cut this out of vinyl, which would be a super cute project too, I could easily cut this out of vinyl and place it onto my metal. There's so many options. It would look like this because my vinyl would be black and it would be filled in. But since I'm drawing it, if I show no fill in the center, this is the path that my pen would follow. So there's no lines inside the image, which is not what we want. So to fill that in, we are going to use this line effects panel over on the right-hand side. If you don't see these squiggly lines, you can also come up here to the panels and choose line effects, and then that will open this window. This is one of my favorite tools in Silhouette Studio. I use this all of the time just to add some interest, even to my digital files. So you can just play around and choose the different fill types, check them out, and you can see there's quite a few. And depending on how big or small your image, you can really achieve a very different look. So since I did a straight fill on our test, I'm going to stick with a straight fill. And you can see that the spacing, I can adjust that. So coming back over to my sample again. On this sample, you can see that the tightness of the lines goes from 0.02 to 0.06. The tightness will depend on a couple of things. So it'll depend on the size of your font. So this is a 72-point font, and this is a 34-point font. But it'll also depend on the tip of your marker. So if your tip is thicker, then you can spread your lines out a little bit further because your marker will not need as many lines to look filled in. But if you're using a super thin marker, like this one, you might need more lines because you'll want it to look filled in. So it'll take a little bit of playing around. I like to just do some drawing tests, little line tests, so that I can see what it looks like, and then I can pick the tightness. So for this one, I really liked the way that 0.03 looked. So we're going to type in 0.03. And you can see right now that it just has the lines. To give it a really finished, clean look, I like to add the edge around it, and that will allow the Cricut to draw back around the edge and kind of clean up all those lines. If you ungroup it, you can choose different fill types. So I could do a crosshatch on these little laurel wreaths over on the edges, or I could change the fill type for Sweet Home. So if you ungroup it, you can adjust everything. We are going to leave it just like this because I want all of it to have the same fill type. Once you're happy with the fill type, this is really important. You want to release the effects. This will tell the Silhouette that you want your file to have all of these different lines so that your Cricut can see those lines. While everything is still selected, we're going to right click. I'm on a Mac, so I am going to just use my Mac and click with 2 fingers on my trackpad. And then that will bring up this window here, and I want to make it a compound path. Without getting too far into the weeds, making it a compound path will just allow all the lines to be on the same layer in Cricut. So it just makes the file a little bit easier for Cricut to manage. To make this a little bit more personal, we're going to add an established date to the bottom of our little design. So on the left-hand side, this is how you'll add any font or text. You're going to click on the A icon and then click anywhere on your project and you can start typing. So I'm going to say established March 2015, and then you can resize it and adjust it to any font that you want. So depending on the look you're going for, we can resize this or change it. Let's see. I think I'll just do a basic font like that. And you can see that if I keep it really small, I won't need to fill it in too much. I could actually probably just have the Sharpie draw the outline. Okay, so let's zoom in. I'm going to add a couple more little details. We'll do a little line. And we'll fill these in too. Add a line over here. Then we'll use our align tools and get those all straightened out. I'm just going to align it to the middle and then space it so that it's spaced so that there's equal space here and here. And then we will right click and group together. So now I've just designed this text, and if I want to give it a fill, I'm going to use the concentric, and we can add this to be super tight together so that it actually does something. So I have it all the way down at 0.05. And if I zoom in, you can see it just added an extra layer so that it will go around twice and fill it in. So play around with your fill types. Don't forget to release the effects, and then we'll right click and make that a compound path. Now we can just line everything up on our project. So I have this, I'm going to line that up, line those up to the center. And then we'll group these together first. Group those together and align everything to the center. All right, so now we are ready to bring it into Cricut. I want you to pay attention to the sizing. So I resized that to be 5x7. I'm also going to change the color to be representing our piece of metal. So it's gray. I'm going to take off that outline. And then we are going to draw on the front. So we will do a pink and we're ready to go. So now, once you're done designing and you have all of your different fill types, we are going to come up to File, Save As, and Save to Hard Drive. We'll drop down to the format, and this is again why you need Business Edition. So if you've skipped forward, I'm just going to say it again here. Make sure that you upgrade to Business Edition to be able to see these options. There is a link in the video description where you can get Business Edition for $59.99 today. So check that out. So in order to have that, you do need Business Edition. And then we'll just call this Home Sweet Home. And click OK. So it's saving to my desktop. Now we're going to open up Cricut Design Space. Make this full screen. On the side, we're going to upload the file. Click Browse, and browse for Home Sweet Home. It will come in as an SVG, so it won't have anything to erase. It's ready to go. And then click Upload. Click on your image and insert that onto the canvas. And here's our project. Now you'll notice that it is way bigger than what we designed. So before you do anything, what you want to do is resize it to match the dimensions that you designed it in Silhouette Studio. So mine was 5x7. Now before we send it off to be drawn, we need to do a couple of things. So we have our rectangle that we're not actually cutting. We'll just use that as a guide, but we're going to leave it as a basic cut, and I'll show you why we're doing that in just a little bit. Now these two, we want them to be drawn. So I'm going to highlight both of them. I'm holding down the Shift key on my computer and selecting both. And then we are going to choose the pen tool. You can change this to represent your color if you'd like. You don't need to because we're just going to put in the color that we want. So we'll just choose Party Pink so you can kind of get a good idea of what it looks like. All right, so we're super close to being ready to send it off. One last thing before I send it, we're going to highlight both and attach them together so that the Cricut software knows that those two things are paper clipped together and won't move off of each other. We're going to click Make It, and you can see a preview of what it looks like. When I engrave or when I use the pen tool, I like to move my project to the 1x1 square, or really any square for that matter. I just like to get it off the 0x0 because there's that extra border around there. So I like to move it to a square that I can easily line it up with. So I'm going to do the 1x1 square. So you just click on the image and move it around, and then click Continue. We'll connect to our machine. All right, so this part is a hack. So pay a little bit closer attention than you may have been, but we are not cutting our material. The material is already cut, but I don't want to choose metal because Cricut will tell me I can't cut metal. So I'm just going to choose medium cardstock. We are not cutting anything, we're just drawing, so the setting really doesn't matter. But this is kind of hacky. It will make sense when I show you what's going on. On the machine side, there's two things you need to do. The first thing is take out this adapter. So all you need to do is kind of hold this clamp, push up from the bottom, and that will pop out. So you can see it kind of lifted up, and then I just gently need to pull it out. So these prongs have a little bit of give. So when they're in the clamp, you just have to push them towards each other and they pop up, and then you can pull it out. I have a full tutorial on this, so I will link that in the video description, but we'll use a different adapter for this project. The next thing I want you to do is take out your blade. You don't need your blade. We're not cutting, and I don't want you to forget to do this. So just pop out your blade and take it completely out of your machine. We're using these adapters from Amazon. Again, I'll put a link in the video description so you can find them. I love them because they tell you the abbreviation. So SFP, Sharpie Fine Point, is the one we're using. It's the yellow one, and it has the initials right on there. And we'll just pop our Sharpie right into it, push it down until you can't anymore, and then drop that into clamp A. Again, I'm just setting it completely in there, and then we'll close it into place. We'll load our material on, so I'm using the back side of this test sheet. So I'm going to line that up with the 1x1 square. And there was a protective film on this, so I just pulled that off before I loaded it on. And then we'll load that into the machine. One last thing, so I said two things, but really three things. We're gonna take out the clamp, take out your blade, and then move your star wheels all the way over to the right because we don't want anything to smear. The thing with your Cricut machines is that you don't need a fine point blade in there for the actual cut feature to work. You could also drop a rotary blade in or another tool because it'll stop you and it won't cut because it'll tell you you'll have the wrong blade, but I just like to take it out. All right, so after we have all those things checked off, we have our pen in, blade out, star wheels moved, material loaded, we're gonna click the flashing C and it will start drawing. So here is a look at the drawing. It's in real time right now. I want you to see how fast, or maybe if you think this is slow, it goes so that you just have a good idea of how long these projects will take. We're about 3% of the way in, and I will add how long this project took to draw so that you just have a good idea of how long these projects will take. All right, right now you'll see that the machine is doing the cut pass. So if you wanted to stop the machine now, you could, but I just wanted to show you that it won't break your machine. There's no blade in there. It's just going to follow along that cut path. Once it's done, we'll unload the machine. We'll just want to cap our Sharpie so that doesn't dry out. And here's our final project. Before you reach in and start peeling it off, I like to do a finger test just to make sure that the ink is dry. It looks like it's pretty dry. And then instead of peeling it off the mat on the top, I like to flip it over and peel the mat away from the back. And you can see even my test side that was stuck down on the mat, it didn't affect it at all. And on the front, here is our project that we just drew. So the top has the regular stripe. They're just horizontal stripes. I think we did 0.03. And then the outline around the edges. And then the bottom one is the concentric. When I was watching it, I think we could have gotten away without filling it, but it's always good to just do an extra little security fill. So watching this back, I want to make sure that we have covered the fill enough. So I'm going to open up Design Space and fill one more letter so you can see it. So if you feel like you had no idea what I was doing and you need me to go a little bit slower or do it again, let's check that out. So back on the computer, we will close out of Cricut. And on Silhouette Studio, I'm going to walk through it again because I feel like I kind of rushed through the text. I think you probably got the image part, but let's do another text. So on the left-hand side, choose the text icon, click to type out your word, and then choose any font you want. I'm going to choose a thicker font so that we can actually see what's happening. There we go, Sunny Beaches. Okay, we'll make our text a little bit bigger and zoom in so we can see what's happening. So at this point, if you were to export this as an SVG, your Cricut pen or Sharpie would follow that outline, which is not what we want. We want it to be colored in. So on the right-hand side, you'll look for this squiggly line. Or if you don't see that, you can come up to the top and choose Panels and choose Line Effects. Then we can play around with all of these fills. So this is the fun part. Like I mentioned, you'll just want to kind of test out the distance between your letters or your line spacing. So you can refer to that test sample that I showed in the video, or just play around with the different settings. So I'm going to take mine down to 0.03, since for the Sharpie, I felt like that was a really good distance. You can also angle it. I don't think I talked about that before, but you can adjust the way that the angle goes. My favorite way to learn anything is just playing around and then testing it out. I know it takes a little bit of time, but this tutorial should give you a good starting point for you to test out what you want to try. And then I do like to add that edge effect just to make sure that it looks nice and finished. Once you have all your effects, make sure to release it and then right click or 2-finger click on your trackpad and say make compound path. We will delete my home sweet home. If you want this to be on a shape, you can add a shape. If you just want to eyeball it and place it, you could just export this and bring it into Cricut. So up at the top, File, Save As, Save to Hard Drive. Again, you need Business Edition to do this. Drop down for the format and choose SVG and save your project wherever you want to save it. I like to save it onto the desktop and then organize it later. In Cricut Design Space, we will upload it by clicking the Upload button, choose Upload, and then bring in that SVG. Since it's an SVG, you do not need to clean anything up. You'll know that it's ready to go if you don't have to clean anything up, and then click on the image and choose Insert. Remember, it's not going to come in the correct size. So let's see how big this was before. So highlight everything. This one's 9.29. So we'll resize it to be 9.29. It will look kind of weird since it thinks we want to cut it, but all we have to do is change it to the pen tool and we're good to go. So now when we click Make It, we can move this onto our project, whatever we're drawing onto. You'll have to let me know in the comments what you end up drawing on, but I like to take my material and place it away from this top corner. So I like to pull it at least to the 1x1 so that I can line it up and position it. Once you're happy with the position, continue on and connect to your machine. If you've left a cut line like I did in the previous tutorial, you'll want to choose a material like cardstock. The material doesn't really matter if you're not cutting. If you are cutting, obviously choose the appropriate material, but then you'll just load in your pen and you're good to go. All right, here's one last look at our project. You can see that it turned out really cool. I love drawing on materials that you wouldn't think that you can draw on, so you'll have to let me know in the comments if there are materials that you are excited to try out, or different pens you're excited to try out, or if there are products that you want me to try and test, let me know. I love hearing your recommendations. Also, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. If you're looking for product links, those are all in the video description, so check that out. I love tutorials like this where we're testing things, so definitely subscribe to my channel if you're a fan of these. Subscribing helps out my channel a ton, and I really appreciate your support. All right, I'll see you in the next video.